In all the Indian cities I've ever set foot in, one thing that was largely missing was
Walkable footpaths.
you take a walk in any major Indian city and you'll find that the sidewalks are so difficult to use that pedestrians are forced to walk on the road alongside vehicles. These hazardous walking conditions push even willing pedestrians to choose vehicles, even for traveling short distances, because no one would want to risk playing a real life game where you have to navigate through all sorts of challenges. The number of pedestrian fatalities has doubled in just 6 years. It's obviously easy to pin the blame on our poor traffic sense, but can we ignore the problem with the planning of our cities?
देखो मैं रोड मंत्री करके आपको कह रहा हूं, रोड के एक्सीडेंट के लिए सबसे ज्यादा जिम्मेदार रोड इंजीनियरिंग है. ड्राइवर पर आरोप लगाना गलत है.
Sure, the expenditure on urban development over the past years has grown significantly, but most of the investment for mobility seems to be allocated for building infrastructures like
metro,
highway, flyover, parking
and more. This disproportionate focus on vehicular infrastructure overlooks people who comprise the biggest share of commuters, the pedestrians.
So I want to understand why. Why are cities being designed for vehicles instead of people?
Why something as fundamental as walking is a daily struggle for urban Indians? And how can our cities become walkable and perhaps more livable? If I want to understand different problems related to walking infrastructure in Indian cities, I should step on the footpaths myself. But that I do every day. You know how that looks like. And it still limits the scope of this report to just Delhi NCR, like most of the coverage of national media. So to understand the issues of pedestrians across different cities, I start with the simplest way. Not ChatGPT, but social media. One quick search and you'll find people calling out how terrible Indian cities are for those on foot. Walking is an extreme sport, a test of patience. Footpaths have open manholes, hanging wires, sewage, hoardings, pots, construction debris, bad crossings, narrow paths, sometimes narrowest. But yeah, these posts just touch the surface of a multi-layered problem. Anyway, how many pedestrians actually post about their issues online? And there are other critical aspects too. Like, are our pedestrian spaces safe for women? Are the designs accessible for elderly and differently abled? And what about encroachments on the sidewalks? So, to understand these nuances, I look for some experts. You know, when I first started my research, I was amazed by the number of people who are passionately advocating for walkability and sustainable mobility in Indian cities. I reached out to 3 of them in 3 different cities in 3 different parts of India, and they generously obliged my request. In Mumbai, Walking Project, an NGO dedicated to making the city walkable, shows how vehicles took over the space meant for pedestrians.
This bridge used to be a British era bridge which had much wider footpaths, but the bridge was actually shut down and they redid the bridge with more lanes, wider lanes for vehicles, but did not provide any footpaths. Because of that, you can see all of this paint and all. As you can see, this used to be road less than 6 or 7 months ago. A lot of people made ruckus about there not being any footpaths present on this bridge. The BMC had to actually respond to this and provide all of these guardrails and safe crossings.
In Bengaluru, an urban living lab, Sensing Local, has been surveying the city's wards for their walkability. Their founders, Ankit and Sobia, show us the difficulties faced by differently abled and senior citizens.
Ankit has become partially disabled as he's had a knee surgery. So we're just going to follow him to see and experience what kind of issues we encounter on the way as pedestrians. Suddenly it has become narrow, blocked by other vendors that are there. From cars that encroach and extend onto footpath space, to again garbage thrown, some construction debris. There is absolutely no continuity. We are now placed at a stretch that is almost 70 centimeters.
70 centimeters.
That is deep and again pushing us back on the road. We are now hit by another obstruction on the road, which has just been parked, leaving us absolutely in a very, very vulnerable spot with traffic. I'm glad the car waited.
And in Kolkata, Shrestha Chatterjee, an independent researcher who organizes gender community walks, shows the city's pedestrian space through the perspective of a woman.
This is the pedestrian space. You can see right out here, I'm walking through darkness. Anyone would genuinely feel not so safe to walk, and they have to walk through the road. This is exactly how it feels like to walk through as probably a woman.
I'm gonna pause there and put things in perspective. Our cities have bad walkability, which pushes people to rely on vehicles, that's growing the congestion and road rage, polluting the air, and the overall behavioral change is taking a hit on public health. So, are our cities doing anything to stop this chain of crisis? I came across this document, Streets for People, by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which shows 50 case studies where Indian cities transformed selected streets into quality walkable spaces for citizens. I reached out to one of its mentors, Prasanna Desai, among India's foremost urban designers, whose team has worked on enhancing non-motorized transport like walking and cycling in neighborhoods of Pune, Pimpri-Chinchwad, Ahmedabad, Jodhpur, among other cities. Instead of interviewing him virtually, I traveled to Pune to see how the walkability has improved there and understand from the experience of an urban designer why our cities aren't walkable.
Today's cities are becoming gated communities. So let us say within a neighborhood or a sector, if there's a large gated community, I can't cross through that community or a development of a housing complex. Earlier cities were not like that. You could cross through the lanes and by lanes, and that established much more walkability also.
The last few decades changed the design and nature of Indian cities. Urban neighborhoods, which were open spaces of social integration and recreation, have now transformed into gated housing societies and people increasingly adapting to cars. But car ownership in India is still way below Western countries. While driving is a way of life in suburbs-dominated America, it's actually Europe which has championed walkability, despite its high car ownership. And like European cities, Indian cities are also densely built, which basically means that our cities also have shorter commute distances, where it makes sense to prioritize active transportation like walking and cycling over motorized private vehicles.
But let me also tell you, the European model where we see today a lot of cycling, walking, etc., it has not come in easy. It has been a battle there also. Amsterdam, which is a city which is full of cyclists now, there has been also a lot of opposition or resistance for making these cycle networks and pedestrian-free networks. And this was way back in 1972 or 73, a movement which was there, which was Stop Child Murder, because kids were getting killed on the street who were going on bicycles or walking, and people revolted and they said that this must stop. And this movement slowly and steadily started gaining momentum, and today we see Amsterdam as a city of cycles.
Ever since the Netherlands focused on its pedestrian and cycling network, the fatality rate for all modes of transportation fell drastically. Many other European countries witnessed the same trend. Meanwhile, in India, road accident deaths are growing unstoppably.
By the time you'll finish watching this video, 5 people would have lost their lives on India's roads. Behind these calculated figures lie stories of unmeasurable grief. In April 2022, 18-year-old Manisha Kumari became yet another tragic statistic in Delhi's road deaths, where pedestrians accounts for nearly half of all fatalities.
ये 2 फोटोज़ हैं जो मैंने बचा के रखी हुई हैं, क्योंकि
फ़ोन में भी फोटो है?
थी, मैंने डिलीट कर दी क्योंकि जब वो एक होता है ना कि हमारे सामने मेमोरी आती है तो थोड़ा अनकंफर्टेबल हो जाते हैं, मेरी मॉम और मैं और मेरे फादर साहब भी। तो जितना हो सके हम चीज़ों को अवॉइड करने की कोशिश करते हैं, बट कहीं ना कहीं चीज़ें घूम फिर के आ जाती हैं।
Manisha was going to be the first girl from her slum to have passed class 12th with commerce and math. But her dreams of becoming a chartered accountant were cut short when she was hit by a vehicle on the way to her school because she didn't have access to a pedestrian crossing.
ये वो रास्ता है जहाँ से उस दिन वो हादसा हुआ था। अगर किसी को भी क्रॉस करना है तो जैसे ये भाई क्रॉस कर रहा है तो ये सीधा वहाँ जाएगा और उस तरफ पार होके मेरे को ऐसे हाथ दिखा के ऐसे जाना पड़ेगा। आप देख रहे हैं आप ये कैसे इसको क्रॉस करना पड़ेगा, डर लगता है।
तो उस दिन भी ऐसे ही ट्रक आ रहा था, तो इसीलिए मेरी बहन की जान चली गई थी.
What happened with Manisha is a routine risk for millions who don't have the choice of a vehicle. In cities that don't plan for pedestrians, their survival becomes a matter of chance.
इतना ज़्यादा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे फोकस किया जा रहा है, लेकिन जो लोगों की जान है उस पर कोई फोकस नहीं है. यहाँ के अगर आप पेडेस्ट्रियन दिखाऊंगा तो आपको ऐसा लगेगा कि पेडेस्ट्रियन को और जितना हो सके मिनिमाइज़ किया जा रहा है, और रोड्स को और उसके सर्विस रोड को भी चौड़ा किया जा रहा है as much as highways is.
If you keep on widening the roads, the vehicles will keep on coming. And now you design roads which are as wide as 60 meter, 90 meter, 120 meter wide streets. It increases speed. And it is the speed which kills. When you have such wide street, how do you cross the street?
Wait, don't we have subways and footover bridges that pedestrians often ignore?
Footover bridges and subways are for convenience of the cars that they move seamlessly and pedestrians go up and down. World over now, there is a consensus that crossings need to be at grade and you have to have signaling system which have to work.
But these pedestrian solutions are often neglected because roads are deemed as the rightful space of vehicles rather than pedestrians. And anything that affects a car's movement is widely resisted.
So here's the mode priority prescribed by Indian Roads Congress, the highest body of highway engineers in India. It says a healthy street prioritizes pedestrians first and private motor vehicles at the end, while also giving space to bicycles and public transport. But we all know who dominates in reality.
There has to be equitable distribution of road space. Because I think the city belongs to everyone. It cannot be car versus pedestrian. And we cannot deny that people aspire to have car, aspire to have a scooter. But the main aim is finally to go from one point to another. So how do you go from one point to another needs to be understood well. We always believe that if we have shorter distances, why can't we walk? Why can't we cycle for shorter distances? And if we want to travel longer distances, then it could be the auto rickshaw, the car, those scooters, and for really a longer distance, it could be a metro, and obviously the bus is one of the systems.
So even if a city may have a public transport network, how would people use it if the last mile walking connectivity to the bus stop or the metro station is like this? So it's time for the $1 million question. How can our cities fix their broken pedestrian infrastructure? And how difficult is it to make a city walkable?
It is very simple things that I want to walk on a surface which is clear. I want to cross the road which is uninterrupted. I must have safety in place. I must have shade available when I am walking. And I must have a society. People want to meet each other and interact. Citizens are craving for such kind of public spaces. And as a designer, as an authority, it is our duty and responsibility to craft out such areas.
If cities can make flashy multi-lane roads, it really shouldn't be that complicated to make 2 meters wide continuous sidewalks with accessible height, even surface and appropriate lighting, so that masses can walk safely without any obstruction.
That means we have to also provide for all the other things, the trees, the hawkers, the dustbins, the electrical poles. And there is a big discussion which is always there on hawkers. But hawkers are there on the street because they are earning their livelihood. I want the cobbler, I want the fruit seller, but I want in front of your house. मेरे घर के सामने नहीं चाहिए. So how do you take care of it? You have to design for them. So you have a property line to property line. So the road width is actually the ROW, right of way. And in this ROW, you have to now distribute. You have to distribute for all the stakeholders, and that is what needs to be designed. Sometimes these edge conditions are there. So they are there. It's not that they are not there, but they are not usable because they have hindrances, they are up and down, the surface is not the same, and that is what we have to take care. And that has to be also maintained. See, a road gets maintained. Just imagine, and there is always a discussion and debate of potholes on the road, and immediately they have to be filled. But footpaths don't get repaired that fast. So you may have a footpath. So I think the whole width needs to be considered as one space, and equal importance needs to be given to this.
Like how the road network is built across the city, if a similar network of sidewalks is also developed, it can do wonders.
After Chennai designed a network of 120 km of walkable footpaths between 2013 and 2019, it prevented up to 30% of people from using a motor vehicle, saving up to 12,000 tons of CO2 emissions. That's equivalent to taking up to 2,900 cars off the road for 1 year. So what's stopping Indian cities to actually go for it? It cannot be the lack of funds.
So this costing of rebuilding the non-motorized transport system into the road condition, we are talking about that it is 15 to 20 crores per kilometer. But if the road is already existing, the services are also in place, this can be done within 8 crores per kilometer also, because then you have to only handle the surface and they won't try to do anything below the surface and not maybe the main carriageway, because most of the Indian cities, the main carriageway always is done because we have spent on it. It is the edge where we want to spend. And this is very much possible and feasible, provided the willingness is there, understanding is there, and the willpower is there.
Walking is the most basic form of mobility, and safe walkable footpaths are a key metric to measure urban livability. After our last video on urban transport, so many of you pointed out how broken our city's pedestrian infrastructure is. Your comments pushed us to pick this civic issue. But it's your support that really makes it possible. We are a very small team, and these videos take us months to put together. It involves a lot of research and production resources. So if you'd like us to do more public interest stories like this, please consider becoming a member of the Quint. It really helps. And yes, do comment your thoughts on this video as well. It might just lead to our next big story.